This review is for all you guitarists out there. In case you didn't know, I'm a guitarist. For many years, that's how I made my living. I played guitar as a session player and, for a time, a live player. I don't do a lot of guitar-related reviews here, but I always want to. So I'm doing it, and I'll do more in the future. And amps, and pedals, and whatever else, because that's where my interest wheel is pointing to for now. It's the incredibly impressive and prohibitively expensive Fender American Professional 2 Telecaster. It's 100% nerdy stuff, and it's coming right up. So, good day, and welcome to the Time Preservation Society. I'm Dr. Alan Grant. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can be notified of new content right when it drops. Seriously. Cheers. Before we dive into the American Professional 2 Telecaster, I want to tell you a little story. I recently bought this guitar with my own money, and by bought, I mean financed over a couple of years with a payment plan that I 100% cannot afford. And I bought it just before the Great Flood of 24, so I was pre-committed to it. As I said before, I'm not wealthy, I'm just irresponsible. But it's a Telecaster. I bought a Telecaster. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no big whoop. But the whoop is indeed big. If you were to ask me at any point in my guitar playing career if I would ever buy a Telecaster, my answer would be, hell no. You couldn't even give me one for free. I was dead set against them. But why? You can skip this next part, and go to the next chapter if you don't care about my personal journey to the Telecaster. But if you want to hear it, here we go. I began playing guitar in the summer of 1987. At that time, I was huge into Guns N' Roses, and then the obligatory AC/DC because their songs were easier to play for a beginner. Then it was Skid Row, Poison, Motley Crue, Van Halen, Rush, and, other rock bands. My best friend Dave was into Metallica and Judas Priest, I think, and other hair metal bands back then. Dave was the very first friend I regularly jammed with, and he was more advanced than I was, so I listened to his advice 100%. One of the things he said to me in the 80s was that no matter what, I needed humbuckers in my bridge in order to get that satisfying chug for powerful chords, And he was right. It seemed that all the bands I was into had guitars with humbuckers, Gibson Les Pauls, SGs, Ibanez Jackson, and on and on and on. And so began my lifelong pursuit, chasing tone, as every guitarist knows. But I could never really find it, and I'm sure a lot of people watching right now are thinking the same thing. But if there was one style of music I hated with a passion, it was country music. I hated country music so much because I viewed it as the arch enemy to hard rock music, the villain in rock's heroic story. We all hated country music. Every one of us freakers. We were called freakers or freaks or rockers in the 80s, like hippies. We all wore concert shirts and tight black jeans, maybe a denim vest, forcefully tearing off the sleeves of a jean jacket using nothing but a pocket knife and a fistful of teenage angst. We were all Eddie Munson. That was my clan. It was. Anyway, we all hated country music. It was the butt of every musical joke in my circle. It was cool to hate country music. We loved to hate it. And Telecasters were the electric guitars of choice for country music. So I despised them right off the bat. But my tastes drifted, but not to country. F*** that. For me, rock was changing. Soon I was listening to alternative music like Pearl Jam or blues-based stuff like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix, and then a series of one-hit wonders from various rock or alternative rock bands. Eventually, I found the band that defined the 90s for me. It was I, Mother Earth. I am still a massive fan of IME to this day. Most of these bands played Strats, and I was willing to admit that the single coil sound was preferable to me, but only in the neck position, maybe the middle. The bridge absolutely had to be a humbucker. That was non-negotiable. And for the next 30 years, I only bought and played Strats or Strat-like guitars that had an HSS pickup configuration. Like humbucker, single. I used to call them fat Strats. Every once in a while, I would buy an SSS Strat, single, for recording or as a backup live guitar, but I'd never use the bridge pickup. It sounded awful to me. I doubly hated the sound of Telecasters. I hated country. Did I mention that? I hated that bridge single coil sound, or so I thought. This went on for decades. Decades, man! But in the last few years, I started to ask myself, why don't I like country music again? Do I actually really hate it, or was it a groupthink thing? Did all my fellow hippie freakers brainwash me? Was I pushed into it by a combination of peer pressure and unfiltered cigarettes? About 4 years ago, I started opening my mind just a little to bluegrass. Bluegrass wasn't country. It was bluegrass. Totally different. I enjoy the musicianship of bluegrass. Then I started listening to older bands that are more classic rock, like Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I know, I was late to the party. Prince, Tom Petty, and a whole whack of other older bands and music that I really enjoyed but wouldn't allow myself to like for whatever reasons back in the day. I noticed that many of them played Telecasters. About a year ago, I actually started looking into Telecasters specifically. I watched all the YouTube videos. I read all the reviews. Before long, somehow, I became hooked on the sound. I was hooked on the history and the sheer love for this instrument all over the world. People who have Telecasters love them. The seeming versatility the Telecaster has. After testing and experimenting, I decided I was going to not only buy a Telecaster, but I was going to buy a real American Telecaster. If I was going to buy one, I was going to buy one that was among the best in the world. I didn't want any junk. I wanted the best if I was going to get one. I decided that no matter what, I was going to buy the American Professional 2 Telecaster, and it is going to be my main guitar. And so I did. After owning it and playing it for over 2 months, I've realized that I've wasted 37 years of my life chasing a tone that was literally in the last place I looked. After 37 years, I realized that the Telecaster is my sound. Can you believe that? I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. I'm not believing it. How in the hell did that happen? Weird stuff in life. Of course, there's still a massive need for humbuckers, and I'll keep my guitars that have humbuckers in there. But my main guitar is now a Telecaster. Wow. All right, enough about me. And if you skipped, here's the new chapter. If you skipped my story, let's get into it. I could go into the history of Fender and Telecasters in particular, but it's been done a million times, so I'm not going to do that. All I'll say is that the old Fender American Standard guitars were renamed American Professionals in 2017, which was Dunkirk and Murder on the Orient Express ago. The Fender American Professional 2 was released in 2020, which was Tenet and Love and Monsters ago. Let's have a look at the Fender American Professional 2 Telecaster in Mystic Surf Green in particular. The AM Pro 2 Telecasters come in 10 colors, 2 fingerboard types, and 2 body types. 3-color sunburst, Olympic white, Mystic surf green, Mercury dark night, black Miami blue, Sienna sunburst, butterscotch blonde, and natural. It comes with either a maple fingerboard or rosewood. If you see wood grain through the paint job, the body is made from roasted pine in the American Telecasters 2, the American 2 Telecasters. If you don't see grain through the paint job, then it's alder. I chose Mystic Surf Green because I love green and because the body is made from alder. I actually would have preferred the Butterscotch Blonde or even more the natural with a maple fretboard, but I just didn't want pine. I wanted alder. The Mystic Surf Green color is a type of metallic paint job. I normally dislike metallic paint jobs, but I also normally dislike Telecasters, but here we are. The body finish is a gloss urethane. I really, really wish it was nitrocellulose, but I'd have to spend a lot more to get into that territory. So, those were my compromises. So it has a 3-ply mint green pickguard. It's a very, very light mint green, easily mistaken for cream color in some light. It sports the well-known Fender logo, but it no longer says Made in USA, and instead says Corona, California. It's still obviously made in the USA, though. The tuning machines are Fender standard cast sealed, and they're staggered to increase the break angle across the nut and to improve tuning stability. It's got a genuine bone nut, which, at least for me, came with the ability to easily swap the stock 9-gauge strings for the 10s without the need for any filing. Because I usually play 10 to 52, I decided to go to regular 10 to 46. I can't go to 9s, they're like spaghetti to me. So I had them switched and no filing was needed, so that's good to know, at least on mine. The nut width is 1.685 inches or 42.8 millimeters. It's got a maple neck with a satin finish on the back and gloss on the headstock. The satin finish, Fender calls super satin, and ensures it's not sticky when playing. It has a 9.5-inch radius with a deep C neck shape. Deep C is more slim at the nut and then fills out gradually as it approaches the neck joint. Honestly, it feels like a dream to play. It's got rolled fingerboard edges, which is just so nice. Rolled fingerboard edges happen naturally after, playing guitar for years and years. If you're playing a vintage guitar for years and years, it kind of naturally goes that way. It's kind of a rounding off of the edges of the fretboard as opposed to sharp square edges. I love the feel. I really do. The fretboards on the Mystic Surf Green Telecasters are rosewood, so that's what I was stuck with. Actually, ended up being really great. The frets themselves are nickel silver, which are actually nickel and brass, and are narrow, tall frets. They're 6105 frets, in case you wanted to know that. It has 22 frets in total and is a 4-bolt neck. The scale length is 25.5 inches and has white dot position inlays. The hardware is nickel chrome and the control knobs are knurled. The bridge is the classic ashtray design with 3 compensated brass bullet saddles for better intonation. It's got the standard string-through body design, but also has the option of top-loading. So you can string it through the body or through the bridge or a mixture of both if you want. The knurled domed control knobs feel nice. One is a volume control, which has a treble bleed so you don't lose highs when you turn it down. And the other is a tone knob, which is also a push-push selector, which I'll get into in a second. It's got a 3-position blade switch that selects either the bridge pickup, the neck pickup, or both at the same time when you're in the middle position. When in the middle position, which selects both the bridge and the neck pickups, as I said, the tone knob can be pushed in to toggle between parallel or series modes of those 2 pickups. When pushed in and the knob is closer to the guitar body, it's in parallel mode. When it's pushed again and the knob is lifted up higher off the body, it's in series mode. In parallel mode, which is the normal middle position on a Telecaster, both pickups are active and each send their own respective signal out of the guitar. In series mode, one pickup outputs into the other pickup and then sends it out. The result is 2 single pickups in series. It's a louder, more humbuckery sound from the Tele. It's like a giant 5-inch wide pickup. The pickups themselves are Fender V-Mod 2 single-coil pickups. I know a lot of people weren't impressed with the first version of the V-Mod pickups, so I'm happy to report that these ones seem to have been perfected. Because I happen to love the sound of these pickups, a lot more than I thought I would. We'll hear it soon, just a few more details to tell you about. It comes with standard non-locking wide strap buttons, which are fine. On the back, we've got a new sculpted neck heel and a beveled neck plate. It's kind of rounded for more comfort when playing up high on the neck. It's also got a little hole here for micro tilt adjustments, which some people are fully against. It does not have a belly cut, which is great. I like guitars that feel like a slab of wood. I really do. And here are your 6 holes for stringing through the body. Nice metal grommets on there. The 1/4-inch jack hole, I had to say that, is recessed and has a medium grippy feel when plugging in. It's worth noting that the body under the pickguard is already routed out to accommodate a humbucker in the neck, and is even routed out to allow for an additional single coil in the middle in case you wanted to mod it to be a Nashville Tele. The American Professional 2 Telecaster comes with a deluxe molded hard shell case that includes a nice leather pouch, some tools, instructions, partial ashtray cover, and a certificate of authenticity. The guitar weighs just under 8 pounds. Not super light, but not super heavy. It measures... Oh, hold on a second. Let me just find my trusty old measuring tape here. You know, this measuring tape was handmade by a nurse named Annie Wilkes in a remote house somewhere outside Colorado. I picked it up off a crippled writer in New York City back in 1990. Anyway. It measures 38 inches from tip to tail, 11 inches at its widest, and just under 2 inches thick. So let's hear what it sounds like. This has been a lot of talking, so let's do that. For the following section, I played through a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe 4 loaded with a single 12-inch Celestion creamback speaker. I mic'd it with a single Shure SM57. Here's a bunch of different sounds and pedals and stuff as I noodle around. And that's your basic, everyday, run-of-the-mill American Professional 2 Telecaster. But at what cost? Hold on to your pantaloons, because this is the hard part. You can own this guitar right now for $1,799.99 USD. Some of the other color body fretboard combos may go up to as high as $18.99 for some reason. So, yeah, it's expensive. So what do I think of it? This is the very best guitar I've ever owned so far, straight up. And I've owned a lot of guitars over the years. Some Americans, some Canadians, some Mexicans, some Japanese, some Chinese, some Frankenstein guitars made with parts from all over the world. I've had a lot of guitars, as you can imagine, as you probably know, because you have too. This plays better and sounds better than any and all of them, if you ask me. I don't know why I was so against it for so many years. The Telecaster really is the Swiss Army knife of electric guitars. It can do so much, and I see now that it's a bit of a chameleon sometimes. Some guitars I've heard on albums that I knew were Stratocasters were actually Telecasters. The single-coil bridge pickup sounds great, unlike a Strat bridge. I expect that has something to do with being mounted in the metal ashtray and right onto the body as opposed to mounted on the plastic pickguard on a Strat. But I can't be sure. I'm not sure. Do you know? Do you know why? Some people passionately dislike 6105 tall frets, and some love them. I really like them. But if you'd prefer the medium jumbos, then definitely look elsewhere. The rolled fretboard edges feel great. I'm a huge fan of the VMod 2 pickups. I think that stands for vintage modified. I'm not sure. It's still got some vintage twang, but not too much. Because, too much twang can suck sometimes. This is a really nice vintage/modern feel. It really is. It's like both worlds. I love the parallel series option. I've used that a ton of times. There is nothing I don't absolutely love about this guitar except for the poly finish. I really wish it was nitro. But if you're me, you can't have everything. Oh, and the price. I don't like the price. It's very expensive. It's too expensive. It stays in tune beautifully. It's built like a Victorian boat oar. It'll last me the rest of my life. And then the rest of the life of the guy who bought it from the pawn shop my children sold it to after I kicked the bucket. It's the very first guitar I've ever bought that I didn't instantly want to modify. Because I always want to modify guitars when I get them. The only problem I see here is that now I want another Telecaster. Is that bad? Is that wrong? I've been converted, and I did it to my own self. So, do I recommend the Ampro 2 Telecaster? Without question. Fender did a really fantastic job on this one, I can tell you. If you can afford it, or don't mind paying it off for years like me, then I fully recommend it. I've even named this guitar. I always name my guitars. I give you Watson. Well, that'll just about do it for all of me here at the Time Preservation Society. There are those that want to be astronomers and those that want to be astronauts. That's the difference between imagining and seeing. Bye now. In transmission. Thank you.